Today, we have a very special episode for you. We are thrilled to see Matt and Megan McIlvane again after such a long time and to have a deep conversation with them about the remarkable career and how the family worked together for Matt to chase his dream. From the beginnings in Chicago, through European success, to a big step with the Boston Bruins. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you guys so much for having me.
How are you doing?
Oh, good. Enjoying summer. We're back in Chicago area, which is home for us. Getting to visit family and friends and enjoy some time at the pool. But we're really enjoying our summer.
Let's start right away with your career. It all started with the Chicago Freeze and later with the Chicago Steel. You were drafted in the 8th round. Did you expect it, or did you hope to go earlier?
Yeah, of course you hope to go earlier. So it was a unique year because the lockout was scheduled to be like the following year. And I actually had to opt into the draft. So I was one of the younger players that was allowed to be drafted. Probably in a normal circumstance, I would have waited another year and try to prove myself a little bit more. You'd hope to go a little earlier. I had a knee injury at the end of that season. I think my agents were projecting, somewhere between 3rd and 5th, and you sit there and you fall and fall and fall, and it's like I'm drafted in a round that doesn't even exist anymore. That's what I tell my son. And so, but it was still a really cool moment. I remember getting the phone call. I was with my mom and my dad, and we all had like this group family hug, and we all were like cheering and having tears, and just a moment that's sort of, it's nice to be recognized. That's all it is. It's a moment in a hockey career that it feels, once you're drafted, bigger than it is. It's really just the beginning of something, and it's a wonderful opportunity to be a part of an organization like Ottawa.
To go on with your career, 2004 to 2008, Ohio State University, you were captain of the Buckeyes in your final season. After a brief stint with the Bingham Senators, all great names by the way, you joined the Eishockey Berlin in 2008. Making such a move to Europe at that young age was quite an uncommon back then. What drove that decision? What are your memories from Berlin?
Don Jackson drove the decision. So that's an easy answer. So a little bit of context. Don was an assistant coach for the Chicago Blackhawks. And as he was in transition from Chicago to Ottawa, he had a moment in time where he was able to help coach my U18 AAA team. And so him and his son Clint were a part of our team for training camp, and Don was a part of our coaching staff and helping out. And so we started a relationship at that point in time. And then once I turned pro, my plan was I was going to train all summer and then go to Berlin and use that time as preparation to get ready for a camp here in North America. And what ended up happening was I was there for a little bit, and then remember Peter John Lee was the manager at the time, and Pete was like, "Hey, would you like to stay for another weekend?" So yeah, sure, I'll stay for another weekend. It's like, oh, we got I think it was called European Trophy. It wasn't even Champions. Like, we got a European Trophy game coming up.
Yeah.
And then, we got another game coming up. And then we got to the end of their preseason phase, and they were like, "Hey, would you like to stay and play for us?" And I was like, wow, this wasn't really in the cards, but the chance to stay and play on that team with those players, play for Don Jackson and learn, it felt like I was going to get more out of it than anywhere else I could have possibly been. And I remember my first practice so vividly. It's in the old I think they call it the Valley, right? The old Berlin rink. And I remember being on the ice with like Steve Walker and Dennis Peterson and Nathan Robinson, Darren Quint, and the list of this team goes on and on and on. This team was so good, and I remember watching people give Steve Walker passes, and they couldn't give him a pass he couldn't handle. It's me chunking a pass to him, and he would just knock it down and go. The next thing you know, he makes some fantastic play out of it. And I just remember watching these guys and feeling like, man, I'm going to learn so much from them. And it was actually some of the young German guys that I ended up, that were in my age group that I ended up kind of connecting with a bit. And it was a really, really cool experience. Got to play in the first game ever in O2 World, and that was a big time blowout. But it was a really special thing to be a part of.
Yeah, Don Jackson, I think his name will come up later again. Torn ACL cut short your first European experience. You spent the next 2 to 3 years playing in the AHL and the ECHL. When did you first consider transitioning into coaching?
If I'm honest, I only ever dreamt of being a player. That's the only thing I ever dreamt of. I only saw my life working out that I was going to play in the NHL for the rest of my life. Like, I didn't have a backup plan. I wasn't thinking about other things. It was like you're so hyper focused on a singular goal all the way through, and it was really difficult. I was just starting to get comfortable in Berlin, and I tore my ACL, and I was like, man, that was a big challenge. It's a year to come back, and I ended up tearing my other one, and it was like all of a sudden I'm starting to get these signs from like the Lord above that's like, hey, maybe you need to transition out of hockey and into something else. And what I realized is, maybe that there's something else set out for me. What ended up happening was I got done playing in Cincinnati. I had my last concussion, and I came home and I took the first job I could take, and it wasn't a job I enjoyed doing. But I got a phone call through one of our contacts that offered me this opportunity to go coach in the Federal Hockey League. And I'm like, never even heard of the Federal Hockey League. I don't know what this is. And they said, it's in Danville, Illinois, which is a place I was familiar with. And when that opportunity came up, it just sounded so much better than what I was doing that I was like, I think I want to give this coaching thing a try. So it wasn't really until then that I actually considered coaching at all.
How was that experience for you, your first coaching job?
Oh, man. Okay, so imagine this. You show up for this, and it's professional hockey, right? But this is the worst team in the worst league in all of North America. So the team was like 20-1, haven't won a game in regulation yet. And I come in, it's November. I'm the third coach. So the first coach got fired because it was whatever, and mistreating people, whatever. And then the second coach had an accident on the ice. He got tripped and fell and hit his head because one of the players fell down. And so here I come I'm the third coach of the season already in November. And like, I like looked around, not only am I the coach, but I'm also the general manager. But general manager isn't just like the hockey operations. I was selling corporate sponsorships. I was selling season tickets. My fiance at the time, or girlfriend, I can't remember where we were, was helping me with game scripts. And it was just like, it was everything except hockey. And I spent the first probably 2 weeks sleeping on a mattress in the rink because I didn't even have a place to live. And we could probably spend a whole podcast talking about stories from this. It taught me probably everything it could about working in hockey aside from coaching. I was doing everything but, and coaching was almost an afterthought, but it did give me this desire that was like, oh, I can see myself doing this. I like this.
After a season in Denver, you had another stint in Orlando with the Solar Bears. Shortly after you joined Don Jackson is assistant coach in Salzburg. How did you two contact, or did you stay in contact?
Once I got into coaching, you know, what coaches do is they get on the phone and they call other coaches, and it's partly like networking, partly information gathering, partly, you know, I was so young and green. I want to learn everything. And I knew Don had some things that I knew that I wanted to have information on, specifically it was at that time, the Berlin forecheck. And I knew I wanted to know that information. So I called him up and, you know, asked for some details on it. He was gracious enough to share with me. And then fast forward a couple years when Don transitions to Salzburg, he called me, and it might have been, you know, last week in July or first week in August, like training camps starting, like in the next couple days. And he called me up and he's like, "Hey, you want to come with me in Salzburg?" And I'm like, what? I was like, what's the position? I'm imagining that I'm going to be like a team services guy, you know, like just, you know, booking hotels and flights and, you know, making sure everything is set up. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but I was very willing to take that position. And Don's like, actually I've got an assistant coach position. I was like, oh, this is way better than what I was imagining. So, I had the opportunity to go in and go be with Don, and obviously that's a big move. Like you're moving across an ocean and into a place that you've never been before. But again, having the opportunity to be with Don was something that was too good to pass up.
Yeah, sounds familiar to me, to book hotels and flights and everything like this. Exactly what I did when we got to know each other. So for the next part, I'd like to welcome Megan in the video. Hi, Megan.
Hi.
Yeah, now we are just been talking about the first move to Europe. Actually, you were part in the second year. So for the second year, he didn't go alone this time. But I want to circle back to the times when you met. When did you meet Matt the first time, and what was your impression?
We met in 2009, and I had been going to school for sports marketing. So I wanted to have a career working in the sports industry in some capacity. And I got a job in the town that I went to university at for a hockey team. And Matt happened to play for the hockey team that I worked for. So I was in the front office selling tickets, but then also I was the on-ice MC. So the person with the microphone that, you know, interviewed the players. And
Megan and the Ice Girls.
Yeah.
That was the name of it.
And so I interviewed Matt a few times, got to know him. We became friends. And then I kind of got recruited by a team that was just kind of a step up in the AHL. And I started working there. And the same week I started working, he got called up. So he was kind of the only person I knew. So I made him do all of our appearances, and I kind of went to him with any questions. And from there, we just became friends and started dating.
Did he make the first move?
Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I was very career driven, and it was very clear that if you're a woman working in sports, you could not fraternize with the players. And I did not want to mess that up. I had my dream job. I knew what I wanted to do. So while I was working for the hockey team, we never dated. But then I got a job with the baseball team, which was what I really wanted to do, was work in baseball. And so when I got the job and switched to the baseball team, he said, "Okay, can we go on a date now?"
Smart. He took the chance.
Timing's everything.
Yeah.
What did you think in the beginning? Where would it lead? Was it right away, oh, that could be something for a longer time? Or was it like, yeah, he's nice, let's see?
Oh, man. I don't know if I knew right away this was going to be it. But he did. I remember early on, he was like, "I'm going to marry you." And I was like, okay. pump the brakes, buddy. So, but I always tell him that in other relationships, I always got bored, and he was never boring. And the hockey life is exciting and unpredictable. And I liked that.
Yeah, an exciting step for you for sure was moving to Europe. What were your initial thoughts about moving there?
Well, I'm from a small town in Illinois. It has 6,000 people and one stoplight, so very small. I had only left the country one time, and it was to visit Germany, and I really enjoyed it. So when the opportunity came around, we had just finally were back in the same city. We had done long distance for 3 years. He had finally gotten a job in Chicago. We were not engaged yet. And this opportunity came around, and I thought, wow, this is something you can't pass up. You know, Don Jackson, he wants to mentor you. He wants to teach you everything he knows. Couldn't say no. So that was kind of the initial reaction. And then the realization hit like, oh, that means probably I'm going to have to live there too eventually. He proposed actually right before he left for Salzburg. The first time he went, it was like the day before he left, he proposed. So my brother always says he's the smartest guy because he proposed and then left the country.
That's me.
Yeah, but it was something we both thought, oh, we're young. It'll be our first year married just for 1 year. Let's go experience things and have this adventure. You know, we can always come home. So it was exciting.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important part of the story is Megan and our relationship was something that I did see becoming more serious. And, you know, I had a ring and I was ready to propose, and she didn't know this at the time, but, you know, like that's sort of where my head is. And I want to make sure that this is going to align with our relationship. And like, I brought this idea to her almost, you know, like, hey, could you imagine this? Like, you know, this is such a crazy thing to even think about. And Megan was like, no, Matt, you have to do this. And, you know, having that like support and reassurance from her, like that we're going to be okay to go through this. That was a huge part in me being able to like, to make the move to go be with Don. And, you know, like Maggie said, we weren't anticipating on a 10-year stay, but we were thinking like 1 year, we could figure this out. And, but it was, you know, she was a huge part of me being a part of, you know, Red Bull and Team Germany and all this. Like she was the beginning.
Yeah, it's good bridge back to your career. In 2014, you moved to Munich. What did you expect to find there, Matt?
Oh man, that's such a good question. So I'll take this and I'll just go back a little bit. I was heartbroken at the end of the Salzburg year, like heartbroken. We lost in the finals. In essentially it was game 5, but it's, you know, it's a 5-game series, so it's essentially game 7 overtime. You know, that was it. And to put in all of that work and then fall just short of the ultimate goal. I thought when you're with Don Jackson, you just won a championship every year. Like I was like, oh no, are we supposed to win? Like, isn't this just all that you do? But that was like really gut wrenching. And we were in our little bubble in Salzburg. We always heard about Munich and what was going on there. But I have to say that I didn't have an impression of Munich at all, other than you know, a really cool city. And, you know, I knew that the model of Red Bull was that Munich was going to be the big thing. And I knew that much. I also remember getting a phone call in the middle of the summer, and I can't remember if it was Don or Christian that called me, but someone was like, hey, we're going to Munich. And I was like, all right, let's go to Munich. You know, like it wasn't like a huge deal. It was like, you know, when in context, moving overseas and then just moving, you know, 100 minutes up the road, it's like not that big of a deal. So that was,
it wasn't a question.
Yeah, it was like, I was like, cool.
We're going.
Yeah, we're going. Cool. Let's go to Munich.
Yeah, neighbor town.
That's great.
In American sizes, it's like next city, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, fun. Yeah, from then on, the opponents did follow the script and Don winning titles. In your first season, you won the title. You repeated that 2 more times in the following up seasons. How did you feel as a coach to be a part of such a successful team?
Oh man. So I'll go into like the first championship run. It was just so much fun. You know, like Don had been a part, I think he'd won 5 championships at that point in time or something like that. And I don't think I'd won anything since like the 9-year-old state championship in Illinois. And so it was so fun to be a part of a good team and, you know, play your little part, you know, in whatever that looks like, and just experience it and feel the feelings of like the pressure of playoffs and, you know, like feel like, you know, not winning a playoff game. What does that feel like? Feels like the end of the world. And then all of a sudden you got to pick yourself up and get right back on it for the next game. And we had some, you know, emotional games, you know, like I think it was game 5 against Cologne at home, you know, where we had the late comeback, you know, and it was, you know, just these remarkable things. And there were so many great challenges from our opponents along the way. But, you know, you win the first one and then you just feel like the championship is yours. Like it's ours to lose. Someone has to take this from us. And you go in but like for me as a coach, now I had an eye for what success looks like in this environment. And so once I had an eye for what success looks like in this environment, I felt much more equipped to be able to like make changes or make adjustments, or if we get off track, I know where to help Don steer, because I'd seen it in action, and then you win 2 more times, and I have to say that was probably unlike anything I'll ever experience for the rest of my life, to be in a run like that. But it's all the people, you know, it's all the players. They make it possible. Don's guidance and leadership was remarkable through that time. Christian Winkler's steady hand on Red Bull Munich at that time, like it started, you know, with the leadership, and it sort of trickled down to the players, and they were so close and so great together. It was a privilege to be a part of.
Megan, you seeing this from the outside, what were you thinking about this runs?
Oh man, my stories are a little different because early on I was oblivious. You know, I would go to games and it was just fun. We'd go to the VIP lounge and we'd have a cocktail and we'd cheer. And the more involved I got, the more stressful it got. To the point I remember the first championship run, I was pregnant with Mason. And my doctor was like, you should probably not go to the games anymore. Your blood pressure is getting crazy, you know, because it was so high stakes. And so actually for the first 2 championships, I wasn't there. I flew home. I don't know if you remember this, but I flew home for the playoffs. Yeah. So 2016 and 2017, I flew home for the playoffs because I was like, I don't want to mess anything up. He is gone all the time anyway during the playoffs. He's not home. So we would fly back. Now, the third championship in 2018, they had a chance to beat Berlin at home in game 5. And so I was like, Mason was 2. I'm like, he can stay with my parents. I'm going to fly over. I'm going to be a part of this year. So I was already in Illinois. Game 5, I fly back, I land, I get changed, and I go to the game. And I remember Don Jackson's daughter, Liza, did the same thing. So we're both there game 5. Well, guess what happens? They lose. So then we're like, well, we're going to go to Berlin. We got to go to Berlin for game 6. So we book our flights. We go to Berlin for game 6. They lose game 6. So game 7 comes around and Patrick Dallaire before the game said, if they score first, you have to leave. I said, okay, I'll leave if they score first.
They did. Mickey Dupont elbow shot on the power play. I remember
And
that.
I remember looking at Liza and being like, we have to go. Like, we cannot be here. It is us. We are the reason they're losing. Luckily, that game was a little less stressful because you guys got a pretty good lead and maintained it, I think, for a while, right?
We were down 1-0, and then we kind of kept rolling.
Yeah, and so
I
we
think
felt
4-1
confident that
at the
they
end
you're
of the first, right? 4-1 at the end of the first. It was, but fun. Patrick Dallaire, just for the listeners, is the goalie coach, or was the goalie coach at that time.
Yeah, good friend. His wife was kind of my confidant, and we stressed each other out during games and grabbed onto each other, and were so nervous wrecks the whole time. But 2018 was the only one I got to experience there for Munich, and it was just awesome. At home with the fans, against Berlin, who we just hated. Berlin, hated them. It was awesome.
It's that's a really fun story from the hockey side. Those 3 games that Megan's talking about. So I don't know if you guys remember this, but the game 5, I'm almost positive we lost in overtime.
Yep.
And
I remember
it was sort of a controversial goal.
Mhm.
Somebody slid into Danny, and it was like, what did they slide into him before the shooting motion or after the shooting motion? But the lead up to that event is we're going down on a 2-on-1, and I can't remember who was with him, but somebody flipped a sauce pass to Brooks Masick, who's our best goal scorer, and he's going down, and he's got almost a wide open net. And I remember Jason Jaffrey on the bench, and I'm standing on the bench behind the players. I remember Jason Jaffrey lift one leg over the boards, and he undoes his chin strap to start taking off his helmet because he's imagining this is the play that we're going to win the championship on. And the puck hits something on the ice, and it pops over Brooks's stick, transitions the other way, and then you have the controversial goal at the other end. It was heartbreaking and gut wrenching, and this was one of my best learning experiences from a coaching perspective, because even though all of playoffs is stressful, this was a really good experience for me, of a championship winning moment where it gets taken from you and the weight to which that affects the team. Because then we went into Berlin the next day or 2 days later and we lost 6-2. And now it's like, wait a minute, we just had a play to win the championship, and now we're going home with game 7. And it was a really fun learning experience for me, because what we did from a coaching perspective is we attacked the minds of the athletes first, meaning we were messed up. We were all messed up mentally. We were like, wait, this isn't supposed to be happening. This isn't how it's.
Remember they had the cake ready to go in the hallway. They had all the beer down the tunnel, and everything was ready to celebrate. And then all of a sudden it was
now game 7.
Get rid of it.
Yeah, now it's game 7.
Oh, it's awful.
And but just going in and addressing the minds of the athlete and trying to put us in the best place to perform, and then we made 1 or 2 little tactical adjustments, and the guys took care of the rest. But it was a really cool experience. I'll never forget this one, winning a championship in game 7, after going through the adversity. When Megan's talking about this, it brings me right back there. Some of the best learning I've ever had as a coach.
Yeah. Some fun feelings pop up when I hear that. Yeah, that's funny. Details I totally didn't remember from that time, but yes, if you tell it, it's live, more or less. Yeah, you already said there were some lessons you learned at that time. What was your role as an assistant coach?
So when I first came to Salzburg with Don, I was only 2 years into coaching at this time, and Don was already a legendary coach in Europe. And Don said, all right, Matt, you're going to take care of the pre-scout. So you're going to go take a look at the opposition, break down the video, present to our team, what the opposition is doing, how we're going to beat it. And you're going to take care of our young players. And that's going to be your little box. And he said, I also want you to write down everything I say. And I said, okay, I'll do it. So every meeting that he was in, I just got my notepad out and started scribbling down every single word that he said. I've got 2 years of documented Don Jackson notes of every word that he said. And then over what I learned from that was Don's method to success is consistent. And into that second year, I started to realize that a lot of what he's talking about, we talked about the first year, even with a different team. And, the edits and things, because it's when you have a system that's successful, you don't have to guess if it works or not. You already know. So now you're like, hey, let's just do this and do it well and do it better and adjust that way. So that was where I started. Over the course of time, he started to give me the power play responsibility. And then over the course of time, he gave me game reviews. Over the course of time, he gave me the penalty kill. Over the course of time, it was, basically, I remember, I think it was after we were going into Wolfsburg, and it was in the finals during one of those runs. And Don and I are sitting in our bus, and we're looking across the table from one another, and he looks me in the eye, and he's like, "Matt, you're ready to be a head coach now." And that was the ultimate compliment. Because I was like, I'm like flattered. I'm like, really? Me?
You like texted me. John said, "I'm ready to be a head coach."
I'm like, and it was quite a compliment. And I wasn't a head coach the next year, but what he did for me was mentor me from small box, you take care of these small little things, to you can expand your role to like taking care of a lot. And probably doing too much that I'm not doing anything like to the extent it could be, but he knew what he was doing, and he was getting me ready to be able to handle this on my own someday. And and to the point now where it's like, yeah, do you need me to coach power play? Sure. You need me to coach penalty kill? Sure. Forwards, D, whatever you need. I feel equipped because I've been mentored, in the right way.
Yeah. Brings me to the question, do you have out of all what you learned, maybe 2 or 3 major lessons you learned from Don?
Okay. This is hard.
Tough.
So let me see if I can nail this, because it's been a long time since I've talked about it. But when you're Don Jackson's assistant coach for so long, so many people want to know what makes Don Jackson so special. And I at one point in time had it narrowed down into what I thought it was. And the first thing I would say is his system. I think that the style of hockey where you put the opponent under pressure for every play and you take away their options, and now you crank up the stress because of playoffs, and it's sustainable throughout a team. You spend the whole year learning how to perform in high stakes hockey, and now you put the opposition under pressure. They're going to make mistakes. And then you've got a team that can capitalize on those mistakes. That's a part of what makes Don special. The other part is he's always thinking about the players. There's coaches who are in there and they're like, there's a divide, they're like, it's like us versus them. And Don, with every message, I'd sit here and watch him go through his video and his clips and, why'd you keep that one? Why'd you talk about that? And he's like, he's always thinking about the way that the players are going to receive the message. It's not about him or his message. It's about how are they going to receive the message and how is it going to make them feel. And so, sometimes it's okay to make them feel uncomfortable because we're not aligning with where we want to be. And sometimes it can be shaped where you can get there, but you're not upsetting the group. And the last part is Don's humility. He is, the winningest coach, and I call him affectionately the winningest coach in the world. He's definitely the winningest coach in Europe. And Don took a chance. I'm a perfect example of Don's humility. You know, like Don took a chance on a 26-year-old to come over and coach with them. He's like, hey, you can come, I'll mentor you. I was like, I've been coaching for 2 years. I would, as a coach, I would never hire me. You know, like I'm going to hire somebody with way more experience that I know. But he's like, no, I already got that, you know, like in this. And then like giving away stuff. Here, Matt, you take the power play. Here, Matt, like Don's coach, keep this in mind. Don's coached the same penalty kill system since he was coaching in the NHL, like in the early 2000s. So it's like, and then he gave me the penalty kill. He's like, no, you do it. You know, and it's like, just imagine that humility. And then like he has this expression that he says all the time. That's like, the day that I stopped learning, you put me in the grave. And it's just like, he's constantly trying to learn, improve, get better. He knows what he knows and he knows it's successful, but he's not stuck in it. He's always trying to find ways to improve. And so, I mean, all of that, it's just like, he's just wonderful. He's a wonderful man. And he's been an ultimate blessing in our lives.
Nailed it pretty good. So I can totally second that. Being only on the stuff, it always felt like being in the team, not being somebody around helping to do something. He always made everybody to feel to be the part of the whole picture, you know, and even the years after, it was when I didn't work for Red Bull anymore, it was still every time I saw him, he had a big smile on his face and said, hey, how are you doing? How is your kid? How's the family? And that's special. I totally second that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's jump to 2018. Another special year. The German national team searched for assistant coach. And there you were, joining a silver medal run. How does that rank in your titles between Munich, Salzburg, and this silver medal? How do you rank this medal?
The scale of the Olympics is bigger. You know, like the Olympics are a worldwide event, you know, and the work that you put into a club season and building that is so much more for an assistant coach, for someone like me, you know, that just jumps in, you know, instead of that 3-week window, we're talking about, you know, months or years of building to accomplish a championship. And so to rank them, I think, is unfair because they're so different. But the one thing I can say is that the scale of the Olympics, you know, like you come home and you're an Olympic silver medalist, and, you know, people in our small town that have never heard of hockey, they're like, oh, we know the Olympics. Oh, you have a silver medal? That's really neat. And, you know, I'm like, yeah, I'm like, yeah, we're the 3-time Deutsche Meister. And they're like, we don't even know what that means, you know? So, but we're maybe that might be, you know, feel like a bigger accomplishment because more work went into it. The scale of the Olympics was just, it's, you know, what's bigger than the Olympics.
Mm-hmm. Back to you, Megan. You already said you had Mason at the beginning, and the second child, Mila, your daughter, was born in the middle of a playoff run, if I recall it right, in Munich.
Yeah.
How challenging was it for you to give birth in a country where you barely spoke the language?
Oh, Steph, what a great question. I remember Michelle Jaffrey, when I told her I was pregnant and I was due at the end of March, she said, don't you know you can't have babies during the playoffs? And I said, no, we didn't mean for it to happen like that. But my first, Mason, was born in America, and I was very worried. You know, I wanted to be near my family. And with Mila, I knew I enjoyed, my doctor was great. And I felt like I had a good plan, and there were some other girls on the team that had done it and, you know, lived to tell the story. And so I thought, it's going to be fine. We're going to figure it out. But the story of when she came it was stressful because it was during the semifinals, I think against Berlin. And she was due kind of on the weekend, and they were in Berlin on Friday. And by, you know, the off day on Monday, Christian had texted and was like, any chance that baby could come today on the off day. And I was like, that's not how it works, Christian. But then she came a couple days later. So she came on the Wednesday. And it was awesome. The hospital was amazing. My midwife was incredible. It was truly, as an American especially, the care that I received, it was just incredible. Great experience. You know, so that was Wednesday. And then I remember Thursday morning, Matt kind of looked at me and he was like, so can I go to Berlin? And I said, sure, go to Berlin. Why not? I'm going to be in the hospital anyway. Kim Dallaire had my older son, so he was taken care of. You know, now looking back, I'm thinking like, I really let my husband leave me in a hospital in a foreign country as the assistant coach. Like, was it really necessary? I don't know, but they won that game, and he says it was because he got to be there. So
It's because she encouraged me to go. Yes.
no, but I do remember a doctor came in on Friday afternoon. He's a great man, and I didn't have many visitors because we didn't have, family there. And he said, I thought you might be alone today. I thought Matt might be in Berlin. And so that was nice, but it was a great experience. And now we have a little German. She loves to tell everybody she was born in Germany, and
Nice.
so. Mm-hmm.
Do they still speak German? A bit?
You know, the other day, Matt was speaking to Mason, and he can understand it. Remember, he really understood what he was saying, but they kind of get annoyed. Mila will say 9. They both say Shiza all the time. So that's just awesome. Sorry.
Okay.
You can bleep me if
No, that's fine. That's fine. Did you have a support network of players' wives or other people who helped you at that time?
you guys. I feel like you guys were high up on my support. Your wife, especially, just asking questions. I was very worried that the baby was going to come when Matt was going to be gone. So I had a list of people that I was going to call if it happened. And if you didn't answer, I'm calling the next
Right.
person on the list. I'm pretty sure you guys were on the list. There were like
True.
20 people just in case that had to keep their phones on. But really, you guys were a huge support for me. And I felt like, that's the best part about playing overseas is you have this kind of core group of women that nobody's living at home. Everybody's new in the city, and you become a family, and you lean on each other. And I don't know what I would have done without, the players and coaches' wives. Nancy Jackson was amazing. She would take Mason to preschool, I remember, so I could stay home with Mila and didn't have to leave. It was, truly survived because of that network.
I remember, as you said it now, you approach us and say, hey, can I put you on the phone list? Because you speak German.
Yeah, really. Yeah,
That
we
was
need it. And
very
there were
true.
so many things that we didn't know. What does this mean? What does this say? Google Translate in 2018 could only get you so far.
Yeah, didn't do much, right?
No, and the nuances, right? Like things might mean something different, so you guys were so helpful. Yeah.
So, what were your most cherished memories of raising kids and managing a family in Munich?
Oh, man. Munich is very special to me because, it's where I was newlywed, and then it was where I was a first-time mom. It was really challenging at first with Mason because I didn't know what I was doing. And then we changed his time zone by 7 hours, and he didn't sleep, and I didn't have any help. But once we kind of got things figured out, I have such fond memories of the park. We lived near Loopold Park, and I could probably still map out that park perfectly because we went on hundreds of walks in that park. The people were just, at the playground, and the other moms and the other kids. I have such fond memories of that. Taking him to the games. I loved when he got old enough to go to the games, and then he would go on the ice afterwards. That's so cool that they do that in Europe. yeah, and playing with, your kids or with Anthony, and it's just like so many memories like that were
Yeah.
great.
I didn't have, I didn't write it down as a question, but it just come up to my mind. The first, when you came to Munich, I remember you saying, "Oh, everybody's so rude.
Okay.
They tell me at the supermarket, go away here, go there, and do this
Well, the
and do
market
that."
store is very challenging for an American. It's one of the most stressful things that you could do to an American is send them to a German grocery store. Everybody's really quick and fast, and they're, as an American, you buy groceries for like
small aisles.
small aisles.
And we're translating everything. It's like, if
Oh
you're
my
trying, like,
gosh.
imagine your first year. It's like you need cinnamon for the exercise, and you have to like go figure out like
Zimt.
Yeah. Oh, it's zimt. Oh, okay, here it is.
Also, like, for example, the eggs. The eggs are in America in the refrigerator section. In Germany, they're like next to the toilet paper. And I was like, where the hell are the eggs?
Yeah, I remember you saying, "I didn't know you can keep the eggs outside of the fridge."
You were like, what do you think happens after they get laid by a chicken, Megan? There are two things about the people, and I would like to retract my statement because I have learned Americans, and especially where we're from, are very, bubbly, but it's kind of surface level sometimes, right? And I remember you said this to me. You said, "Megan, it's hard to become friends with a German, but once you're friends for life." I think before we had dinner with you and Anne, that was something you said to me because you weren't sure if we were going to be friends, and it kind of takes time to crack the surface. But then once you're in, it's like you're friends for life. And I was just telling someone who was wanting to travel to Germany. I said, they're not going to be sunshine and butterflies and with all these pleasantries, but I always felt no matter where I traveled in Germany, the people were helpful. They helped you get from point A to point B. If you had a question, they were willing to help you. I have such fond memories of the people in Germany.
Yeah. Nice to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very genuine. She says all the time.
I do. I just was telling someone the other day.
Yeah.
I guess
We
another.
are just honest, right? And then that's a
Yeah.
different state too, right, for you.
And a better appreciation for rules and customs. And if you're operating outside of those, they're gonna let you hear them.
Do you remember the time on New Year's Eve, Steph, when you taught us about shooting off fireworks? Because that was bonkers to me, the fact that you guys shoot off all those fireworks on New Year's Eve. But Steph walked us downstairs into the street, and he gave like a safety demonstration before we were allowed. Remember, you put the firework in the cup, said, "Watch what happens to the cup." And the cup exploded. He said, "That would be your hand if you didn't follow the instructions." Oh, I will never forget
so
that.
Bad.
No, it was so fun. The people of Munich specifically and of Europe, there is no other fan experience like watching a game with Munich fans, European fans. That is like my son, when we came here, he thought that he was like, "Where are the people with the drums?" He's like, "There's no drums here." That was such a cool memory to play and go to those games with that kind of atmosphere every single game. It was so awesome. So good job.
But it's difficult to get back on track. But Matt, back to head coaching. Let's not dwell too much on this period, as I would describe it as a pure success in Salzburg, right? Am I right?
Pure success. Oh boy. I'm not sure that every day felt like pure success. So the one thing I can say is that I felt very ready to be a head coach. So I needed, some people to believe in me. And so, Christian Winkler, Renee Dimter, at that point in time, Stefan Wagner was our team manager, and and obviously Don vouches for me, but I need a lot of people to believe in me to like have that opportunity. So I'm forever grateful for them for getting me started. Our first year, maybe felt pretty easy. And when I say that, I had a really good coaching staff. Chris Spar is now a head coach in the PWHL. Matt Smaby is now an associate coach in college at North Dakota, and two very talented coaches. We had a very good team, and a very good goalie, and we just kept winning, and it was so fun. And like we had some really fun customs on the team. Like after we'd win on the bus ride home, Chris Spar would be the DJ, and the guys would have a request chat that they would like send their requests down, and so then he would play it up, and then it was the DJ the whole way home. We had a lot of fun that first year, and we felt like we were ready to win, and then COVID happened. And so when you say, with Salzburg, nothing but a success, like that next year of COVID was traumatic, and it was the same for everybody across the world. So I'm not going to sit here and like pound a drum that I'm like complaining about something. It was our world, has and maybe will never see something like that again. Like that was so unique. But coaching an ice hockey team in your second year as a head coach at that time, like, you're learning under the gun about a lot of different things that are ever changing, and at the same time you're supposed to win. And so it was a really unique year. Fun stuff was, we had JJ Peterka on our team a little bit, and Justin Schutz, who because we started earlier in Austria than they did in Germany. So it was fun to coach those guys. We had a good team. We were young, and there's just a lot of difficulties, probably more off the ice than on the ice that year. And then you go into the next year, and like I can tell you the way I was feeling as a coach was like, all right, well, like I'm supposed to be winning now. You're supposed to be winning a championship. If you're coaching Red Bull, and who cares who's counting what happened? You've been here for 2 years and you haven't won a championship yet. It's like you kind of feel that a little bit. And I remember like going into that year, I felt like we had a good team and a good opportunity, but we were really doubling down on our team culture. Like we felt like if we could get a little bit closer as a group, and it started by a little bit of retooling our roster. We got an influx of some middle-aged Austrian players who contributed quite a bit, and then we brought in some great imports, and we had a team event at the start of that year where I thought we were going rock climbing or doing a high ropes course, and we ended up 50 meters suspended by wires above the ground, where we're all looking down, like fighting for our life. We had this collective moment as a group that was like impactful. Maybe not the safest thing to be doing, but like really impactful. And I remember like the coaching part comes out of me, and I said to the guys were all gathered around a fire drinking coffee after that, and I remember like kind of feeling this moment that was like I have to capture this, and I went up and I asked the guys, I was like, how did we get through that? Like, what did we do? And somebody's like, I'm just trying to live, like I'm gripping as tight as I can, and Thomas Raffel said, I was just thinking ring by ring, step by step. And that was the way he got through all of the fear, was just like kind of one step at a time and one step at a time. And that line from Thomas became a theme for us for our whole season that year, where it was like, no matter what these 2 years had been like behind me, it's like, we're just going to keep our focus small, onto the next game, onto the next ring, onto the next step. And we rode that momentum to sweeping the playoffs and winning 12 in a row. And this to me is when you go back and you compare like the Olympics part, like the 2 year, into the third year build up, to win your first championship as a head coach, that's pretty special too. and going through the ups and downs and getting to feel that. And then the next year, getting to win in game 7 again, that when you're down 1-0 going into the third period, it's like you're just kind of collecting all these lessons that you've learned along the way and then applying them and then watching the guys go execute. So I think maybe if you look back now on the outside, it's like, wow, 2 championships in 4 years. You only had 3 playoffs to get that done. It feels like nothing but a success, but I can tell you that in the moment, there was a lot of growing pains to be able to get us to this side where we can feel like it was a successful journey.
A similar question for you, Megan, as we asked in Munich, what was the most difficult aspect of relocating your entire family to another city?
Well, that one was interesting because we had just had Mila in Munich, and remember, Steph, you had found us a different apartment. So we had just moved into a new apartment. And then maybe a week later, Matt was like, I think we're going to go to Salzburg. So we lived in that apartment for like a month, maybe, and then packed up, moved to Salzburg. That year was a challenging year for me because I had lost my mom during the off season. And I had 2 little kids at home, and it was Matt's first year as a head coach. So, there were a lot of things that went into that move. We were finally getting ready to join Matt. We were over here and he was already in his season. We were joining him in October just because of everything that had gone on with my family. And 2 days before we were supposed to leave, Mason was 3 at the time and fell and broke his arm. So then it delayed us another month to get over there. So we weren't the first season. We were just there, a few months, and it was very, it's always challenging to relocate a family, but when your kids are small, it's a little bit easier, I think, because the schools aren't as big of a deal and, they're not upset about friends. So, I don't know, the most challenging part was probably just leaving Munich because I was so familiar and, I had such a good routine there, but then, Salzburg is it was a special, special place to live and to have kids. And even though it was a very challenging time because of COVID, I still say that was some of the hardest years of our lives were those first couple years in Salzburg. Truly those challenges, COVID, not having that great of a season the second year, it made the championships just that much better. Like that Salzburg will always be a special time of our lives for sure.
Looking back on your time in Europe, would you do it all again like that?
It's funny because the first year I lived there, I would have said no. But there became a point in Salzburg, and I think this was probably COVID, when people couldn't come visit us and we couldn't really go home very easily. And we just kind of hunkered down, the 4 of us, and we really grew as a family. And there was a time that we looked at each other and we were like, we could do this the rest of our lives. Like we could live here forever. The people in Austria, our neighbors were amazing, just so, so friendly. I could have lived there forever. And it's very, we talk about this a lot, that whenever I say things like that, I could live here forever. I'm so happy here. This is so great. It's always like, well, we're moving. So I would do Europe again. We've always talked about, someday to go back would be amazing. The kids know if we don't go back before that, we had told them 10 years from when we left, we would go back. So like Mason would have been 17 and Mila 14. We're like, we'll go back 10 years no matter what. So it was a special place. And I would, yeah, absolutely. People in North America are kind of afraid, especially in the hockey world, of going overseas sometimes. And whenever the wives here would talk about that, I tell them that it was one of the greatest experiences of my life. And I would recommend it to anybody.
Matt, what are your thoughts about that question?
Would I go back?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. I always say I'm a bull, I'm a Red Bull, wherever that's going to be. But, as far as like living in Europe, I love living in Europe. I loved riding my bike, to the rink in Salzburg. I rode my bike to the rink in Munich. all the way, winter rains. I miss that stuff actually. Like I like the layout of the schedule for families in Europe. I think you have a lot more family time. I like, specifically comparing it to the American Hockey League, where your roster is ever changing. It's nice having a group that you're building with the whole year, and you've got, that vision of winning and stability, that Red Bull provided. I loved Europe. Loved it.
The Schoko croissants,
Yeah, more importantly.
the Käsespätzle.
Talking about the AHL, Matt, after making such an impact in Salzburg, you returned to the States. How did the San Diego Gulls approach you?
How did they approach me?
Yeah.
Pat Verbeek approached me. So Pat's the general manager for Anaheim. And when I was still in Munich as an assistant coach, Pat and I were put in touch through a colleague. And he was an assistant general manager for the Tampa Bay Lightning at that time. And what he was asking me about was, how are we doing our player development with Red Bull? Because it started to come to fruition that Red Bull starts to get a little reputation for our player development. And so he reached out to figure out what's our process like and what are we doing. And I think in this somehow, some way, he was sort of starting to measure me for like, could I come over to come maybe be their assistant coach, or maybe come over and be, an American League coach in the Tampa organization. And then Pat, moved to Detroit, and he and I remained a little bit in touch. So Detroit drafted Moritz Seider. He reached out to me, hey, what's this kid like? And I'm like, he's a stud. And so they ended up drafting him, but we got back in touch there. And then Pat was named general manager, maybe in the back half of a season. And once I saw it on NHL.com and that it was announced, I was like, oh, wow, this is great. I shot him a text message, and I'm not kidding you, it could be 20 seconds later, he called. And, all I'm doing is saying, hey, congratulations, this is great hire. And so we started this like conversation again, like we did in past, and it all felt really normal until it didn't. And then I was like, oh man, he's gonna offer me a job. And so he did. It wasn't time to leave Red Bull just yet. So what they did was, they brought in Roy Sommer into San Diego for 1 year. And then while I was finishing out my contract with Salzburg, and then I went back and had an opportunity to take over San Diego from there.
Did you sign immediately, or did you ask for some time to consider the offer?
Oh, this was there's nothing immediate about this. Yeah, this was not immediate. I didn't know. So there, like, while this is going on, like, there's a plan for me in Red Bull as well, to continue on and potentially move on, and they're trying to keep me within the organization. And so that's in our minds, because we are so fond of the Red Bull organization. The truth is, once you kind of like boil down to it, it's like, could go on and win 5 more championships in Europe and not be guaranteed that an NHL general manager is coming over saying, hey, why don't you come be with us? There's no guarantee. And so to jump at that opportunity, we certainly didn't move fast, but it felt right in the end. It was not an easy decision. We can say that.
What was the biggest adjustment when coaching in the AHL compared to Europe?
Oh my gosh. Let's say that, like, with Red Bull, as a coach, I was learning about winning. In San Diego, in my first year, I was learning about losing, and I wasn't good at it. And I can say that. So for context, San Diego, like the year prior, had a really poor record. It was one one of the worst in the history of the American League. And so I knew going into it that this was going to be a big project, but I also have this like self-confidence that I'm like, I know we can do this. You know, like I can see us turning this around in no time at all. And no time at all is not a real thing. You know, it is a process to building something that's going to be a sustainable winner. And so like we won our first 2 games. Actually, we played Marco Sturm in Ontario, and we won our first 2 games. And I'm like, oh, this American League thing, this is easy. I knew we could do this. And then we lost 13 games in a row. And I was in the middle of this. I was like, I don't know how we're ever going to win again. You know, like that. I'm not telling the team that, but that's what's going on in my mind. I'm like, man, we got so much to clean up and fix, and so many habits that need to be changed. And you know, the reality is we had a very young team. If you imagine Anaheim has been in a rebuild, their rebuild results in draft picks. Their draft picks become goals. Their goals need to be developed. And so this is a part of the project, is that we have to take these young players and help teach them how to win. I always tell them that Pat Verbeek brought me there to develop champions, and whether or not we were going to win a championship in San Diego, he knew I had championship pedigree and championship experience. So I was going to teach them the habits and behaviors that it takes to become a champion. And so this was our mission. And so it was a hard one. Like it was, the American League is hard because your roster is ever changing. And when guys get really good, the NHL team grabs them. And so then you have a hole in your roster, and then you got to go figure out how do you fill that? And that's the nature of the league. It's just the way that it is, and it's that way for everyone. We did have younger groups, and younger groups full of younger draft picks that needed to develop. And over those years, like we set a goal in my last season there that we were going to be a playoff team. You know, and at the beginning of the year with our roster, I was like, man, we got a chance to like really finish high in our division. The Pacific Division is very strong. And then our starting goalie becomes a Duck. And then our all-star centerman becomes a Duck. And then our best defensive defenseman becomes a Duck. And now it's like, oh boy, making the playoffs is no guarantee anymore. But the guys like really rallied around the team goal. And that was what felt really good. And one of the things that's very obvious when you're coaching Red Bull is that when you sign up to coach or to play for Red Bull Salzburg or Red Bull Munich, you're signing up to win a championship. And everybody knows that right away and that's a vision that's created from the top right on down. When you're in the American League, there's a lot of conflicting agendas because you're trying to win, but you also need these players to make it. Like if you win a Calder Cup, but nobody makes it to the NHL, you're not doing your job. Like the reason that the American League exists is to fuel the NHL teams. And so that balance is a real delicate one. But for us to be able to, you know, get into the playoffs this year, it was a big accomplishment. And San Diego is now set up, I believe, for sustainable success. I think they've climbed out of the basement, and they're now a respected, once again, I think, because they have been this way in the past, but I think they're again a respected organization that's extremely competitive. And I think they're set up for more success in the future.
As you said, when players called up to the NHL team, I think it's like a limitation to you as a coach. How did you work with that?
I think you just realize that it's like your job is to develop these players, and your job is to win. And if you kind of think of it in that context, you're okay. Because like as a coach, like how fun is it to have a young player with a dream, and you've got a moment in time to like help mold him into what he wants to be. And now all of a sudden you watch him accomplishing his dream of being an NHL player. And you know that this was already a good player. Maybe you just had to polish some things. Maybe you had to make some big changes with this player. Maybe it was just going to happen anyway, but to know that you had a hand in molding somebody and accomplishing their dream. And also organizationally, when you know that you are making an impact in helping the Ducks to become a Stanley Cup champion, like that was the goal. And when you frame your thinking that way, it's not a detriment to the coach when somebody goes up. It's actually a stamp of approval that what we're doing is right, and we have to keep doing this if we're going to keep having success.
How frequently were you in contact with the Ducks coaching staff?
It was different when Greg Cronin was there and when Joel Quenneville was there. We're very close during training camp. That's a great time for exchanging. And then Greg Cronin, we would probably talk once a month extensively. Joel Quenneville, we didn't have the same kind of relationship that Greg Cronin and I had prior. But he is unbelievable. This guy, he's a winner, and he's such a good man. There's no mistaking why he's one of the winningest coaches in NHL history. And there's so many similarities between him and Don Jackson. Like there's a lot of personality similarities that between the two. But Q and I would talk maybe every couple months, just check in with each other.
Was it life easier for you and your family being back in your own country with speaking your native language?
Of course, it has to be. Yeah, I think that anytime you take a translation out of any kind of a social setting, it's automatically easier. I think that the big thing, is for the kids that they're in school, that they're, in their native language. That was much easier, making friends and learning and those kind of things. I think for Megan and I, the things you don't think about people living abroad is like, I don't know, like even if we wanted to like go from our house like to the Altstadt, it's like we got to go figure out, how are we going to get on the U-Bahn and what exit we're going to get off at, and like, how are we going to get a ticket, and when we get there, how are we going to order at the restaurant? Like there's all these little things that are like processes that when you're in your own country, they just feel simpler, and not that you don't appreciate them. It's just easier when you're speaking your native language. And those are all things we figured out. But yeah, I would say more succinctly, yes, this was easier.
Coming back to you, Megan, the family part again. How did life change for you and the kids in California?
Well, I remember when Matt said, hey, the Anaheim Ducks want me to coach their AHL team. And I said, where is their AHL team? Because it could be anywhere. It could be Canada. It could be San Diego. I was like, I could live in San Diego. I could live there.
Yes.
So I think that right off the bat, living in San Diego was incredible. It's an amazing place to raise kids. The weather is gorgeous all the time. The beach is right there. It's truly, truly a dream come true. So life, it didn't, like we always say, it wasn't better. It wasn't worse. It's just different. And going back to, was it easier in our home country? Sure, there are things that are easier, but, America is kind of built on convenience, which can be a great thing. But one of the things we loved about Europe so much was that you had to walk places and you had to, challenge yourself a little bit. So there were some times that, America is great and we were so grateful to be in San Diego, but we definitely missed some of the European things too. But man, San Diego, can't ask for anywhere better.
Yeah, the beach is quite different from the English Garden in Munich, right? Did you enjoy it there? Did you spend some time there?
Yeah, we went to the beach often. I always tried to make it, when we did this in Europe too, we never wanted to get used to where we lived. I remember when we would go to Marienplatz and we would look at the Glockenspiel and we would just say, I hope we never get used to this. I hope we always look at that and just are like, wow, it is so cool that we live here. Same thing in Salzburg with, Geisberg and the Untersberg. And so in San Diego, we were like, we never want to get used to the fact that we're 15 minutes from the Pacific Ocean. And in February, we can get a burrito and, sit in the sun and watch surfers. So I do feel like we took advantage of that. And we did go to the beach a lot. So it was great.
You make me so jealous.
It was
Even we
good.
have an extraordinary summer this year. I think for is it about 7-8 weeks now, we have in degrees Celsius, we have 30 up, like 30, 35 degrees Celsius. And it's
I've heard about
crazy.
Yeah, that's hot.
It is, yes, yes. I love it. I love it. I love the good
Yeah.
weather. But it's not the beach.
No, no.
How did you adjust to move back to America, especially with the kids?
Oh man, how did I adjust? The adjustment period was not as challenging because we have always come back to the States in the summertime. So the kids have always had a taste of America. They've always been, pretty comfortable living here. And really, most American cities are pretty similar. So the adjustment, it really wasn't that challenging. I think the school system was challenging. They both started going to school.
Mm-hmm.
I think the family time, that was a hard adjustment because, Matt the year before had played as many games as they could possibly play in Salzburg, went until game 7 of the finals. And I think they played 64 games. Well, an AHL regular season is 72 games. And so that was the biggest adjustment for us. The family time, he was gone a lot more. Things in America are just busier. The kids' sports are busier, their extracurriculars are busier. So I really was fighting in the adjustment period. I felt like I was fighting to kind of hold on to some of these values that we had in Europe, this family time and slowing down. And remember, we can walk places. We don't have to drive everywhere, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Really, the adjustment period was easy. It was almost my own preference to try to really hold on to some of the things that we valued about Europe when we moved.
I remember some year back texting Matt on WhatsApp when Munich was searching for a new coach. Was it last winter or something? Said, "Is there any chance you come back?" I bet Megan doesn't want to go back, right? And he was like, "No, Megan is the one who's saying, let's go back."
Yes. You know what? It's funny because I got a bad rep. Christian, Renee, they would always say, well, it's Megan that wants to go back to North America. And it was not me. When the San Diego thing came up, I was like, oh, really? We're going to move? So I would like to set the record straight that I would live in Europe tomorrow if I could.
Yeah, it's just you for me, you're like American girl, you're everything I see in an American girl, and you went back right for the playoffs. You came later, and so that manifested in my head like a bit. You enjoy your time there. I knew you like Europe, but I thought it's for you. Yeah, we go back home.
Yeah.
Right.
I think things changed in Salzburg. Our family became closer. I started to realize the value of raising children in Europe. It's just different. It is better, I think, for the kids. There's just the outdoor time. I really, really cherished our time, and I learned. And I changed. I was a different person year 10 than I was year 1. And I love living in North America, and I'm so grateful for all the places that we've been. But yeah, by the end of it, I was like, I could do this forever. So I can see how you thought that about me, but I definitely, I evolved.
And
the
it's
Austrian,
not
really.
Yeah. What I forgot to the question before, you made the transition too. Not only Matt made the transition from as assistant coach to head coach, you made it too as the assistant coach's wife to the head coach's wife. And I remember you saying, yeah, Steph, I don't know, can I still be friends with the players' wives, or am I now the head coach wife? I shouldn't connect too much because I know things they don't know maybe. How did you get along with that change?
Yeah, I've actually only ever done one other podcast, and it was about this topic, discussing kind of coaches and players' wives' relationships. I had a hard time realizing, what is my role? And am I going to be able to go to dinner with them and do all these things? And I learned that we were still one team. We were still common goal. And as long as I set some boundaries, I felt comfortable having those friendships and relationships. And really in Salzburg specifically, the last 2 years, well, really the COVID year, that we could only be friends with each other, right? Because we couldn't be outside the Red Bull bubble. So we really, our kids, the only people they saw were Red Bull families. And from that, we kind of grew this sisterhood. And, you know, Matt always talks about the brotherhood and how important that is. And we really improved on the sisterhood. And we had each other's backs. And you know, we celebrated together. We were mad together. We, you know, made fun of Klagenfurt fans together. And we really had each other's backs. And when they won the first time in Hungary, you know, those were the people that we hugged first. It's, you know, the wife that sat next to you every game. And so I was very proud of how I had those relationships and friendships in Salzburg. You know, and I think it was so important for all of us. And I think it strengthened the team, because I argue that if their home life is good, if their wife is happy and their kids are happy, they're going to be better at practice and they're going to be better on the ice. You know, if there's a girl that doesn't have anybody or their kids don't have anyone to play with and they're stressed or upset or homesick, that player is going to be thinking about that, and he's going to be worried about that and might not perform at a high level. So I do think that those relationships, looking out for each other, are important. And I have brought that to San Diego. It was a little different in San Diego because they're all like 21 and just happy to be there. But, you know, as we went on, there were a few wives that were in similar situations as us. And I think as a young hockey wife, it's a unique experience to be able to connect with them and just say, hey, I've been there. I know what you're going through and it's going to be okay. And I'm here if you need any help. And yeah, I think it's always possible.
Back to you, Matt. A familiar face from the past emerged, Marco Sturm, your head coach from the Olympic Games, and the Boston Bruins approached you. Did you have a sense that something's big coming up, some bigger change is gonna happen?
After Marco and I got done together at the Olympics, and I don't know, there's sort of like, is part of it because we'd accomplished something so monumental, you know, like where you look back and everything was just so positive, but it felt like almost bigger than that. Like Marco and I, we didn't really know each other prior to the Olympics. And within that, whatever it is, 3.5 weeks, felt like we got really close. And after we finished with that, I just kind of had this feeling like he and I were going to coach together again. And I didn't know at which capacity. Like, was I going to, you know, be the head coach and he was going to be the assistant? Was he going to be the head coach? I didn't know how this was going to work. But coincidentally, you know, we end up coaching, you know, we're in Germany together and Pyeongchang together. And then all of a sudden we're in California as our closest rival, 90 minutes apart. It's a little bit hard to believe. And so like we got a chance to, you know, to cross paths and chat a little bit. And when Marco went to Boston, there was something in the back of my head that was like, ooh, I wonder if this is how it's going to be. And, you know, the first year went and, you know, they did phenomenally, you know, 100-point team and, you know, make the playoffs. And I think a lot would say that Marco, you know, overachieved and they found some new ground with their group as everybody's growing together. And, you know, then this opportunity came up and I always thought at some point in time it might happen, but I can just tell you that I'm thrilled that it did.
Yeah. We learned today that moving to the San Diego Gulls wasn't that easy of a decision and took some time. How easy was this decision to make?
Not easy. So it wasn't easy because earlier this year I signed an extension to be in San Diego, and so I was there for 3 years, and I was extended for another several years. And so I had an opportunity where, like, I'm thinking in my head, we're planning, like, we're not going to move our family, you know, and we're going to be in one place for, you know, 5 years or 6 years, or, you know, it's going to be a while that we're in one place. And I felt tied to Pat. I felt aligned with Pat. I feel like he has a plan for me and supports me. And so it's like in my head, it's really difficult to envision doing anything else. And, Pat and I had conversations about, maybe someday, there's an opportunity where you can come up and, be with the Ducks. If you're ready as a head coach, great. If not, maybe there's a place on Q staff where, you can, be an assistant. And we have had those conversations. There's obviously nothing in stone, but it's just, we're talking about the future together. And that's a nice thing to have with your boss. And, like when this opportunity came, it sort of felt like, no, I'm already set up. I know what I'm doing. And the more that I got into it with Marco, like he and I, we had an interview and, gosh, I don't even know. Maybe we were on the phone together for 2 hours. And he got back to his family, and his family's like, that's not one person you were interviewing the whole time? And he was like, yeah, it's just, it's easy. It's like kind of picking up where you left off with an old friend somehow. And I felt that connection right away. And Don Sweeney with his interview, I felt the guy that, I can tell how organized he is. I can tell his vision for the team. And I can feel like there's, maybe an opportunity for me to come in and help support. And, and now you start thinking about an original six team and like an opportunity to go be in the NHL. It's, I don't know. It's just, once you get through all those thoughts, it's like, yeah, this is really cool. We got to take this opportunity.
You just mentioned it. The Bruins are one of the original six teams. Is that extra special for you?
For sure. I mean, like any time you get a chance to be a part of like history or, an organization, with this kind of roots, like legacy and tradition, it's like, this is fun. And, there's a lot of people's shoulders that you're standing on, being a part of the organization. And, one of the things that comes with it is like, people like Zdeno Chara, like he's in and a part of the staff, and Z is, helping our leadership group and, also, around us. And he says he doesn't want to be a coach, but like, he and I have had some conversations about like the defense and, like where he can see the team improving, and just getting a chance to like go be able to chat with people like that, that have been such a huge part of these kind of organizations. I think part of that is where you can utilize the tradition that's here.
Yeah, what coaching style have you developed over the years in America, especially maybe changed to Europe? And what can the Bruin fans expect of you?
I'd say that my coaching style revolves around two core values, connection and collaboration. So for any German speakers that might not know those words, connection is the relationship building, and real investing into people, and collaboration is that we're working together. I'm not a dictator. I believe in a partnership. And I think that even from a head coaching lens, I think that if you can keep that idea that we're all in this together, I think somewhere in there is my coaching style. For the Bruin fans, it's Marco's team. Like this is, it's, and I'm here to support him and the staff, however is necessary, whatever I'm called on, however I can help, however I can support. I'm here for the players. I'm here for Marco. I'm here for the other coaches. And I'm really willing to pick up whatever is on my table and do a great job for them.
Maybe to complete your personality a bit for the listeners, I was in contact this week with a Munich new arrival, Trevor Carrick. He was a year with you in San Diego, and he told me, like, Matt's special. We were bad. We were playing bad. We were positioned bad in the table, and I just waited every game. He just snaps. But he never did. Why is that? Why? What is in your style that you just never lose it, more or less?
Well, I'd say I lose it sometimes. I think I erupt, I don't know, once a month. It's something on average like that. Maybe once every 6 weeks. Um, I just think that there's so much of the game is emotional. And I think you have to save those emotional bullets as a coach for specific moments. Otherwise, they're going to be useless. And especially if your team's bad, if you're going in there yelling and snapping every day, they're going to tune you out and turn you off in a hurry. But again, if you think about this idea that we're in this, I care about you and we're in this together. Somewhere in there is the coaching style. And I had a player this year in my exit meeting that said something that may help this answer a little bit. He said, Matt, I've never had a coach like you before. I said, what do you mean? And I'm just expecting, like, where's the shot going? And he goes, no, he's like, I've never had a coach that can stand in front of the room and like deliver a message, command respect, and we're all respecting. And then we get out on the ice and you like bump into me and like we start laughing together and all of a sudden we're like talking about my family. And I've never had a coach that did it like that, where you could be like commanding the room and in front of people, and then in the next moment you're laughing and telling stories and finding like opportunities where you can connect with people, and that's my style. Like I'm a teacher. I set really high standards. This is what Red Bull taught me, and we're going to chase after them. And along the way, I'm going to support the heck out of you. And if you don't feel like doing it, we're either going to find someone else or you're going to get less opportunity. Or sometimes the hammer has to come out, but I try to save that for very special times.
Do you think it's an advantage that you and Marco already have coached together?
Definitely. Yeah. And there's an immediate relationship and chemistry and understanding of, each other's core values and who we are as people. I think that puts you so far ahead versus, going in and meeting someone for the first time.
Maybe some private background in between. I remember a pact you made with Patrick Dallaire in Munich. You said if one of you made it into the NHL, the other one would follow. Patrick moved from Munich to Charlotte this year. Tongue in cheek, did you let him down, or is it just delayed?
Well, when you're an assistant coach, you don't necessarily have hiring power. And Boston has a fantastic goalie coach who's been there forever. Pat will be an NHL coach. I'm certain of that. Pat Dallaire will be a goalie coach in the National Hockey League. It's only a matter of time.
Yeah. It was just fun. I heard you moving to Boston, and like 2 weeks later, Munich announced after 12 years now, I guess, Patrick Dallaire is leaving to the US. And I said, oh my God, it's going to happen. The pact, it's going to happen. And then I found out it's going to be Charlotte. And they have been asking several times, and he had to do that step once, right?
Yeah, it's time. It's a great, he's been amazing for Red Bull. You just look at that stable of goalies that he's, developed and worked with, and all the championships from, Salzburg and Munich. It's a great next step for Pat.
Yeah. Right now you're in Chicago. Have you already found a suitable place in Boston?
I'll turn this one over to our director of travel.
The facility and housing manager.
Yeah, you taught me well, Steph. We did find a place. Honestly, we didn't do very much research. I just kept thinking when these conversations were happening, I was like, this isn't going to happen. There's so many things that Boston has to offer us the job. Anaheim has to let you out of your contract. It has to be, all these boxes have to be checked before this is going to happen. And there was one day where he, had heard from Anaheim, had heard from Boston, and he kind of called me in the bedroom and he goes, I think we're going to Boston. I was like, okay, I think we're going to Boston. So I had done no research. I know nothing about the housing. We just lived in Southern California. So to me, I'm thinking it can't be harder than finding a place in San Diego. It was pretty challenging finding a place in Boston, but we did, sight unseen. We found a place, and it's in a, walking distance of our kids' school. So yeah, we're excited.
When are you planning to move?
By the 26th of this month, we will be stationed in Boston.
Oh, you're already preparing then, right?
Yeah, everything's booked. We're ready to go.
Yep.
Have you been already in touch with your former player, Keith Coyne, who lives in Boston with family?
Yes, and Maureen Coyne. Absolutely.
Yeah. So actually, coincidentally, we were trying to find my son a place to play hockey. Like kind of in the steps. It was like, we got to find a place to live. We've got to find a place for my son to play hockey. It was like in the top 3 that we needed to do. And Keith Coyne, I reached out to him. I was like, hey, what are your suggestions? And he actually led me to the organization that Mason's going to play for. So we are very much looking forward to getting back in touch with them.
We already have dinner planned. So
nice. Megan, as you're probably a moving pro by now, how do you prepare for the next move?
Well, I am very organized. And the biggest part of my organization is I throw a lot of things away. So we don't hold on to things. When you have kids, they accumulate a lot of stuff. And so we, donate stuff, or we give it to, I've got nephews, so we give things to them. We don't keep a lot of things, and that really helps with the move. If they're not playing with the toy, let's get rid of it. If they aren't reading a book, let's donate it to the library. So step 1 is getting rid of the clutter. And then step 2 is I just kind of have processes of how to pack things, and I label everything. It is a little complicated because we did not know we were moving to Boston when we left San Diego. So all of our stuff is still in San Diego. So we have to fly to San Diego, pack up that house, ship it to Boston. So we've got a few steps. This is going to be a complicated move, but with teamwork and organization.
And Megan, our secret weapon.
We can do it.
Can I hire you for training for my son? Because his room is like fully packed of everything and it doesn't give anything away.
Well, this is the good thing about moving so much is I will kind of get rid of things right before we leave. And then by the time we come back, they've forgotten about it, So we're not going to be back in this house for another 8 months. By the time we come back, and then if they ask about it, I'll say, oh, I think that's in Boston, And then when we go to Boston, I'll say, oh, I think that's at the Illinois house. I have a strategy.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Maybe I try that. Not moving, but let's see. I take something out of that. Could the O'Coins be a starting point for you building a new family network in Boston then?
Oh, I definitely think so. I mean, Maureen was Megan's first,
let me tell the story because you're going to
go ahead.
Maureen Coyne is a special, and I will never forget. She told me one time, you never forget your first old wife, the first old wife in the room. And she was like, that was Maureen to me was an old wife. But she was a mentor. She was so awesome. Just one of the coolest, greatest people I've met. And when we got this job, she reached out right away. She's driven past the house. She has educated me on school districts, on hockey teams. Yes, it is. And this is the good thing about hockey. Matt always says the paths are narrow in hockey. You always run into the same people. The paths are narrow. And that's the cool part, is getting to reconnect when you move with people from other parts of your life.
Now, a tough part for you, I have to ask. You as a diehard Chicago Bears football fan, will you now supporting my favorite team, the glorious New England Patriots?
Absolutely not. But the Bears do play in New England this year, so I am going to try to get tickets. But I'm never going to be a Pats fan. Absolutely not. Sorry.
I'm going to have to talk to the Coins for the support again. I know who they support. Fun story. I'm going to see the Patriots this year too. They're coming to Munich, playing the Detroit Lions, and I gladly got a ticket.
That is awesome.
Yeah. So no chance for the Patriots.
No. No, but I am very happy to be a Bruins fan. So
That's good to know. To close it now, Matt, what is Megan's share in all this moving, even over continents? You want to say a bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, people, look at a coach, who's, you're getting interviewed and you're front and center of some things, and you're like, wow, all of a sudden you made it to the NHL, and people see that, but what people don't see is like all of the support that goes on behind the scenes. And we hit on it on this podcast. It's like, for me to go take the opportunity to go be with Don Jackson and to go start my career in Europe, it wasn't my decision. It was our decision. And to have someone behind me that's supporting me, allowed that opportunity for Red Bull to begin. And then, obviously the change, Munich and Salzburg, but even like the Olympics, like I was supposed to go home to Chicago for a month. Like we had a break, and this came up really late that I was going to be, a member of the Olympic staff. And I remember I got the invitation, and I like called my wife. I was like, hey, like, is it okay if I don't go to Chicago and I go to the Olympics? She's like, yeah, you got to go do your thing. And, then when we're moving back to San Diego and we're going to change what, Salzburg starts to feel like home, like we feel at home with Red Bull. We're going to change. She's supporting me. Now we're moving our family from one side of the country, literally, to the other. Those decisions don't happen without her support. And the change doesn't happen as smoothly without her carrying so much weight. And so, I can say that, I am not where I'd be without my wife. Our family's transitions would be, impossible without this kind of support. But this isn't just a coaching story. When you think about my life, it's a family story, and it's not complete without Megan and her support.
Aw. That's so nice.
That's a nice closing section here. Matt, Megan, it's been a pleasure to see you again after so long. It's clear that humbleness and positivity we experienced with you in Munich haven't changed. You're still greatly missed by a lot of fans here. The Bully podcast team wishes you all the best, and our former guest, Marco Sturm, as you both open this exciting new chapter in Boston with the Bruins. Thank you very much for making time for us and speaking almost 2 hours to us.
Well, we appreciate the opportunity to be here. And I thank you so much for inviting and including Megan, because, she is a huge part of our story. And, the coaching thing doesn't happen without her. So we appreciate it.
Yeah, that was fun. I like reliving the old memories.
No kidding.
Yeah, true. Should do it more often.
Yeah, well, you'll just have to come to Boston.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Now that. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Okay,
you, guys.